Here we are on the first business day of fourth quarter. Crazy to think that it is already October. And we're moving into some of the most productive and profitable months that the business has. All right, the kids are back in school, people are settled down, they're thinking about their long-term future and goals, where they want to start their new year. So looking forward to having this be an extraordinary and very effective coaching session for you today. On the board, and I'll read what I wrote, just so those who are listening instead of being on Facebook Live. And Danette, we're on what? Troops or on Everest?
Troops.
So we're on Century 21 Troops Facebook page for the Facebook Live, if you want to jump onto that. And then, of course, all my friends and all those who are listening and who are calling in. So with that, I had written up here this. I wrote down this statement. Your current circumstances do not equal your future. Now, what's interesting about that, I want to share a story with you. Many years ago, and this has to be nearly, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, I was in a moment of absolute duress. And I wish I could say it was the only time in my life I've been in duress, but I remember being completely mentally, emotionally laid out, broken mentally. In fact, financially I was broken. My health was broken. The good news is that I had things going well with my marriage. I had things going well with my kids. They were healthy. They were strong. So those were okay. But the real areas where I was broken was I was broken financially, and I was broken just mentally from this business and what I was about. Well, I remember walking into one of my mentors, and at the time he was actually the broker and the owner of the very office that I resided in. And this gentleman's name was Robert Fillmore. And I remember writing out all of my challenges. I wrote down all of my financial challenges. I wrote down all of the things that I was working on and all the things that were happening. And I remember the challenges that were going on as if they were yesterday. I mean, it was really heart-wrenching on me. And I remember when I sat with him, and we were sitting at this little round conference table, and he went through everything, and he kept looking up at looking at the paper and all the stuff I had given him, and he kept looking up at me, looking back and forth. And I remember him then taking off his glasses, and he said these words to me. Now, I'm going to share with you in a minute here another thing that he said. But he said, George, he goes, your current circumstances don't equal your future. Now, that may have been a simple statement, but my observation is that every one of us will not get out of this life, right? Our whole life will, at one moment or another, have circumstances and challenges that we feel like we could never get through. And we begin to think that what we're dealing with right at this moment is going to be the existence for the rest of our lives. And yet, as we have what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich says, that we will have temporary setbacks, we have to recognize that that is all that they are. They are temporary. Everything is temporary. Even the life that we live is temporary. So as we move through today, I want you to be thinking about your circumstances. And I want you to be thinking about the fact that, look, if you want to have your life be better, let's focus on a summit or a horizon that is far better than it is today. And even if you're having tremendous success, the reality is there's areas of your life that you know, just like I have, that you can improve upon. And so I have to just recognize that my current circumstances don't equal my future. And look, it seems like most real estate agents are like myself, impatient, wanting to get things done, make things happen faster. But the fact is that we have to take a step back and recognize that. And then the second thing I want to write up here when I was sitting with Robert Fillmore that day, and I'll tell you, this first statement though, man, it really settled my nerves. But this was the one that made the biggest difference to me. And it was this. He said these words, I believe in you. Now that may seem like a simple statement. It may not seem like anything that big. It might even be like, well, was he sincere when he said it? And I have to tell you, I knew he was. Because at that moment when he simply said, look, George, your current circumstances don't equal your future. And you know what? I believe in you. Was enough for me to turn everything around. And in that short period of time, I remember paying off thousands and thousands of dollars in the months to come because I had someone who believed in me. Now, what I know is even if we haven't met, my belief in just human beings, my belief in you is off the chart. My observation is that you can accomplish, you can achieve, and you can do anything in this business. As you've all heard me say, there's nothing in this business you cannot learn. There's nothing in this business you can't do. So I deeply believe in you. But the second part is that no matter what your circumstances are, how challenging, how tough, how brutal, how even if they may seem nominal to another, but they're big to you, the fact is they don't equal your future. You have control. You have an ability to make or take decisions every day that will lead you and move you towards the future that you desire. So, with that, I also want to mention, right, with the great tragedies that occurred just recently in Las Vegas yesterday, our heart, our prayers, our thoughts go out to those. You know, scary, scary moments. You know, many of you may not know this, but we had a handful of agents that were at this concert where this gunfire took off. We're very grateful that they're safe. At the same time, our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts go out to those that didn't survive, and certainly the many, many that were injured. And the chaos and the crisis and the tragedy and the trauma that has occurred is incredibly unfortunate and should not have happened. But with that, as we do, we carry on and we move on because that's who we are. And I know that even those that have passed on would expect that of us, and that is what all the expectations of this great country and what we're all about as human beings is, that we carry on even in the face of tragedy, trial, and strife. So with that, I want to talk about something that is incredibly important to me that builds on this. It was at that moment that I began to realize that it was not the number of leads that I got. It was not the number of opportunities that I got. It wasn't, I mean, the internet back then wasn't even a thing. I mean, essentially, I mean, it wasn't any of those things. It wasn't what the things that were happening around me that mattered. It wasn't what other agents were saying. It wasn't the inventory. It wasn't the interest rates, the mortgage programs, the employment or unemployment. It wasn't my broker, my managers, my mentors, my coaches. It wasn't my friends. It wasn't my family, my spouse. It was none of those things that really were the thing that could change everything. What I realized is that I had to take a personal responsibility. Now I have a fun little saying that when I love to go boating with my family, and we have a deal where if you're out in the water, you know, when we first had a boat, they would say things like, if they didn't get up on the wakeboard or the water ski, they'd say, you pulled me too fast, you pulled me too slow, there was a wake, there was a wave, there was water, the water wasn't calm enough. I mean, just any and every excuse. So as I'd be running or, you know, driving the boat around the skier to drop the rope off again, I would say to like an Isaac or an Ashley or a Mackenzie, my sons and daughters, I would say, no excuses. And so jokingly for years we've said the name of our boat is No Excuses. Here was the deal. What I realized back then was that the only person ultimately who was responsible, now it doesn't mean that I wasn't resourceful in pulling in my coaches, my mentors, my friends, my family to help me solve the challenges that I had at hand. But the real thing was this, is that I knew that I was responsible, that I couldn't make excuses anymore, that I couldn't blame others for my challenges, that I couldn't be the victim of circumstance no matter how challenging it was. That if I was going to change, I had to change. If I was going to take responsibility, I knew that it would be the building blocks to my success. So with that, I want to share with you the fundamental idea that came to me shortly after this. And it really was the spearheading, the foundation of everything else that I talk about, speak on, and believe. See, over and over again, I get agents who will come to me and will talk about all the outside reasons why they don't succeed. Now it's getting even closer to home where we talk about teams and team leaders that don't succeed. They'll blame the circumstances of the environment. They may blame the commission structures. They may blame the other agents on their team. They may blame their staff and their people who administrate on their team. But the fact is, it's not any of those things. Because here's the deal. The reality is that the personal responsibility lies upon you, meaning or me. It lies upon each one of us to be the leader that we have to be. So back when I realized my current circumstances don't equal my future was when I came to the conclusion that if I was going to win this game, I had to take the responsibility and I had to become a better leader. See, there's the technology part of this business, there's the compliance part of this business, there's the administrative or operational side of this business, and yes, it takes some leadership to get those in play. But ultimately, to lead others, we have to lead by example. So if any of us, or each of us, or one of us, me, if we're having challenges, I can promise you, it's the way in which we are leading. So today I want to show you something again that for me was so important, so critical to my future, and has been the building blocks of everything that I do today. I'm not the guy who tells you he has it all figured out. I'll have people who will come to me and tell me, oh, George, I just wish I could be just how you say it, or how you speak, or how you present, or how you do this. Look, there may be things in my life that I do reasonably well, but the moment that I ever have said to myself, I have, quote, arrived, or I'm that guy who's got it all figured out, was the moment that my brain shut off. I stopped learning, I stopped growing, I stopped, not being what I believe to have a level of humility and acceptance and learning that I'm willing to accept in others. I'm so intrigued and curious by the way in which people operate their lives and why they do what they do. And as I've gotten older, I've become less and less and less judgmental and become more and more and more curious as to why we do what we do, how we operate the way we operate, what is it that makes you tick, what is it that juices you and makes you excited, because it is so fascinating and so intriguing because there's so much to learn from one another. So with that, let me erase this up here and let's jump into this leadership idea for the next few minutes. So my observation is this, is that leadership, like John Maxwell has said for years, is this. It is influence. Leadership is nothing more than influence. Now, to me, what is influence? It's the ability to influence people's actions. It's the ability to influence the way they think. It's the ability to influence the way they feel. It's the ability to influence the way they believe. So if we can help people with our leadership shape the way they feel, the way they think, the way they act, and the way they believe, man, you are influential if you're able to do that. And the better that we become at this, the more success we will have. Now, fundamentally, we have to first remember that we're working through two things. We're working through this idea of persuasion versus manipulation. Now, look, a few days ago in a role play session, I was talking to an individual. We were talking about and I mentioned the same skill sets that Bernie Madoff used to manipulate people for his own gain, his own ego, or whatever it is that made him tick, were the same skills that the person who was persuasive used. That's scary to think about. Now think about this. The same skill sets are used for the manipulator, the person who's trying to take advantage, and the same person who is persuading. But the key difference here, and again, for some of you, this is just a great reminder. The difference between manipulation and persuasion is this. It is our intention. Now look, years ago I had a great little example of this, and I remember going out on a listing presentation. And when I went on this listing presentation, it was a for sale by owner. This is well over a decade ago. But I started to click into this idea of persuasion versus trying to just get my own way. Maybe not manipulative, but man, I was in it for me. Right? I wanted to get deals. I wanted to make money. I wanted to earn commissions. I wanted to make my mark in life, if you would say, right? And so I remember going to this listing presentation, and when I went there, I gave this great presentation, but somewhere through the presentation, they said, oh, George, guess what? We really like what you have to say, but we are committed, no matter what, we're going to interview 10 people, no matter what. No matter what you say, no matter how good it is, 10 people we're going to interview. And I'm like, okay, well, of course, and here's what I'm the number one. I'm the first guy they interview. I'm thinking to myself, there is no way I'm getting this deal. But I did some reasonable lead follow-up. They had the discount brokers there. They had the people who would do anything on the planet. There was people who told them they could sell it for more, do it for less, all the different things. But this is interesting. I lead follow-up, and I kept with them. And over about a 2-week period of time, I remember I was at a Utah Jazz basketball game. And as I'm sitting there, I look at my phone, I'm like, oh, I got a message. I pick it up, I listen to the message. The person says, this client says, hey, or potential client says, give me a call. I give them a call, and they said, hey, we would really like you to list our home. And I said, well, wow, you know, I guess when the iron is hot, you want to strike. And so I said, you know what? How about we meet this evening? So I actually left the Jazz game and went to the appointment, and we listed the home and helped him find and buy another one. But this is the moral of that story, and it is this. Persuasion, I want you to remember this, is long-lasting. And what manipulation is it is this. It is short-lived. It doesn't last. So in the great words of Zig Ziglar, who said, look, if you help enough people get what they want, you inevitably will get what you want. That is the key to success. Help enough people get what they want, you inevitably will get what you want. So when we look at this idea of persuasion, well, how do we persuade? Well, for years we've talked about the study that was done at the great university, UCLA, and we've talked about that if people want to communicate in a high level, or not even, they need to master these things, but if just this is how people communicate, and when they gave a percentage to each, they said, look, 7% of it is the words that you say. 38% of communication is the tone of your voice. And 55% of communication is your body language, or your body itself, right? And I would include in there your image, like what you wear, what you dress, is part of your body, right? So, look, these things, this is how we communicate. And the problem is that when we don't recognize that, sometimes our slumped shoulders or our downed, not such a great tone, or, the words that we say aren't so great, and we don't become a great communicator. But the challenge is this for each one of us. Why become a great communicator? Well, here's the deal. You have to become a great communicator if you want to help people get what they want. You can't get what you want if you are not a great communicator. It's impossible. But the other thing is you can't help others get what they want if you're not a great communicator. Here's the scary part. Some of you who are listening or watching are saying to yourself, and please take this the right way, are saying, oh no, I'm a great communicator. Gang, your income is a direct reflection as to whether you are a great communicator, I can promise. The number of agents, if I have managers listening to this, that you're recruiting is a great indicator as to whether you really are an extraordinary communicator. This isn't a knockdown on anybody. The reality is that the evidence, the fruit of the tree, if you're a great communicator, is the following that you have, the people who follow, and the income or the revenue or the deals that you do. In our business, that is the indicator. That is the fruit that would show this person is an extraordinary communicator. Because when you're an extraordinary communicator, you influence people in their actions, their thoughts, their feelings, and their beliefs. That's what great communicators do. So, with that, let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about this idea of leadership and how we persuade. And I want to share with you what I consider for myself to be one of the most important ahas in regards to the way in which we lead. So I call it and I'll try to best explain myself for those that are just listening, not being able to see the dry erase board, but I call it the leadership spectrum. And what this really represents to me is this. It represents the whole spectrum of leadership. So on this left side, I'm going to write down these words. I'm going to write down things like gentleness. I'm going to write down on the left side here, kindness. I'm going to write down on the other side, we're going to write down patience. We're going to write down mercy. We're going to write down the word even love. That's one side of the equation. There is no question on it. On the other side of the spectrum, I'm going to write down these words. I'm going to write down the word boldness. I'm going to write down the word direct or directness. I'm going to write down aggressive. I'm going to write down, let's write down passionate. right? Kind of getting the point, right? Tenacious could be another word I would write up there, but I won't. But you get the idea. So on one side we have all this gentleness, kindness, patience, love, mercy. On the other side we have this boldness, directness, aggressiveness, tenaciousness, passion. Well, here's the problem. Some people think you have to be one or the other. See, I actually think that I came out of the womb over here on boldness, right? I mean, that's how I was wired. That's how I am. I think it was the environment I was probably raised in. I just came through an environment where it was just that type of intensity. Well, the problem is that if I'm always that, if I'm always bold, if I'm always direct, if I'm always aggressive, people will look at me as being, mean, I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm not listening. They think that I may be missing something if I was always that. On the flip side, if you are always just gentle, always kind, always patient, always merciful, always giving everything, this is the sad part, is that people will perceive you as being weak. Now that doesn't mean you are. I'm just talking about the perceptions. So the key here is that in order to be an extraordinary leader, you have to be on both sides of the spectrum. But I have a belief, and I'm going to give you a percentage here. I actually believe that on the side of gentleness, kindness, patience, and mercy, and love, and giving of yourself, that you're going to spend nearly 90% of your time in that side of the spectrum. But on the other side of the boldness, the directness, the intensity, the tenaciousness, you might be spending about 10% of your time on that side. But the fact is you have to still be both. See, I have in my mind where I'm sitting there being bold, saying to someone, reduce your sales price. You're overpriced. Sign the contract. Those are all the boldness of statement. But then I have to come back and go, wow, I know it's very tough to have to reduce your home. I know it's very challenging. So we have to show more compassion, more empathy, more kindness of how challenging it is in that reduction. Or I know this is a difficult time, maybe as you're going through a divorce, or they've lost a family member, or they have to move out of state and their kids have to leave their friends, or whatever it may be. All of these factors are factors in regards to showing the compassion, the empathy, the love, the mercy, the patience, kindness. Has to be shown because it has to be real and authentic. But on the other side, you cannot forget that there are those moments where you must be bold. Look, some of the easiest ideas and examples is the military. They would not be walking through a bomb field or a war being just simply gentle and kind as bullets and ammunition and everything's flying all around them. People would be bold and direct and screaming, getting to a place, taking orders, marching to the direction. So we know that leadership has different places at different times. One of my greatest examples is, again, Ronald Reagan. Look, whether you believe him or not, like his political policy or not, is irrelevant. What's relevant is the man was known as is known as the great communicator. He stood near the walls of the Berlin Wall and shouted and screamed in so many words to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He boldly directed the affairs of the world. He boldly said that the communist regime was the evil empire. Bold, direct. But then when you saw him take the hand or the laughing and the kindness and the gentleness that he brought to Mr. Gorbachev and the great friendship that they developed to protect this amazing earth that we live on was profound. Look, that's what the great ones do. It is their ability to weave in between the boldness, the directness, the assertiveness, the tenaciousness, and the patience and the kindness. So look, a lot of people, when I share this, I still remember one lady years and years ago came up to me after a presentation like this and said, George, I really believe that this is very, very manipulative, that you would have to manufacture this stuff to, things like matching rates of speech, matching body language, tonalities, volume, pitch of your voice, repeating and affirming, asking great questions, level shifting, transitional statements. pattern interrupts. And here's the point, by the way. If none of those things resonate as you know what they are, that is a problem in itself with your communication. If you do not know every single thing I just said, and I know I ripped them and wrapped them off quick, but if you don't know what the pattern interrupts are, level shifts, transitional statements, if you don't know what matching rate of speech, volume, pitch, and all the things that repeat, affirm, asking great questions, if you don't know those, it is impossible for you to be an effective communicator at the highest level. We're not talking about being mediocre. We're not talking about being average. We're not talking about being just okay. We're talking about being extraordinary when it comes to the way in which we communicate. All right? So, key concept here, and we'll finish and we'll wrap up with this. I'm going to write this right in the middle of the dry erase board here, guys, and I'll repeat it for those who are listening, but it's this. Our job, right? If you were wondering, what is our job? Our job is to be what others, or let's just say the client, right? What others need us to be. That is your job. That should be your intention. If it's not, then you're missing the boat. That's your job, ladies and gentlemen, to be who they need you to be, to help them get what they want to get. It's the reasons why we always talk about needs, wants, and expectations of our clients or potential clients, because your job is to get them what they want. Look, Zig Ziglar said those great words, as I said earlier. Help enough people get what they want, and you inevitably will get what you want. It's how it works. It's the deal of the universe. It's how life rolls. That's what needs to happen for you personally. Now, with that being said, I just want you to remember again that there is so much that I've shared with you, that for 25 years of my life, nearly in this business, right, a quarter of a century, these are the things that I have shared for many years and have come to the conclusion that although you may have all the leads in the world, you may have all the doors that you could possibly knock on, all the neighborhoods that you could go out to, none of it will matter if you are not extraordinary, not just average, not just okay, extraordinary at your communication. You will never win the game at the highest level. And I know this. The objective of this organization is to do one single thing. It is to assist every single agent, every individual that comes in contact with it, to becoming their very best. But the question that I will always ask to any agent or to any audience is this: who do you have to become to earn or to transact a certain number of deals? You fill in the blank. But I do know that if each one of you wrote down this number, who do I have to become to sell 100 plus homes a year? Whoa, that would be a very powerful story. Because what it would have to show you is who do you have to become. See, again, that's where we start back with what I started with, which was we work from the inside out. We take responsibility working on our own leadership, our own mindset, our own skill sets, our own disciplines. Because working from the inside out is a lot harder than saying, I need more leads. I need to be given more. Gang, we are not victims. We are not going to blame others. We are not going to blame the market, the economy, other agents, other inventory, other interest rates. We will not do that. You cannot do that. What we have to recognize is that you have the power, you have the choice to take responsibility for your life. And those words that echoed so true to me so many years ago, which were, your current circumstances do not equal your future. And George, I believe in you, have resonated in my heart and soul, my mind, to carry me to the standpoint of, you know what, the only way I can do that is I must be responsible for the outcome of my life. You guys are great. I hope you have an extraordinary week. If you can't tell, I'm just a little passionate about this idea or ideas I've shared with you. I love leadership. I love the great leaders that have influenced my life. I am grateful for those that have come down my path and have taught me how to lead better. I hope that you get off this call just with the absolute resignation that you will take responsibility and that you owe it to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to this company, to humanity, to those that you love, to becoming the best possible leader you ever could be. That is what I hope for you. That is what I hope you resign your life, that you submit to that process so that you can become everything you're capable of becoming. To truly to take a step back and go, I have become my very, very best. All right, gang. Have an extraordinary week. Anything from Danette or Jason? We good? Okay. Again, our heart, our thoughts, our prayers go out to those that are in a tremendous amount of suffering in Las Vegas and those that were visiting. What a tragic day. Just know that I hope that you'll keep them in your mind and thoughts and prayers as we move forward throughout this week. And unfortunate to see those things happen, but we will carry on. And I know that that is what they would want us to do, and we will do so. All right, guys. Thanks so much.